Can you just explain what do you do as a product manager at LinkedIn so that people can understand what is the role and responsibilities for a product manager? What is the most exciting thing about product management and what is something which maybe you don't like?
Making things happen even without having a direct influence on them is something that I really love about product management. Future ready products in the product management space, I would think of them as something.
Nowadays, a lot of focus is on adding cool features into the products, but cool features may not always work. Any example which you can think of where it had good, cool features, but it didn't work at all?
A very classical use case on WhatsApp is searching by a time range. I think that's a gap that's been there for years now.
If you have to design a product which really is helpful to the customers, to the stakeholders, whether it has too many features or doesn't have too many features, what are the considerations which a product manager has to make? There's a lot of expectation that the AI should be personalizing the answers and recommendations, okay? But the other side of it is being too creepy in the sense getting into your personal areas of what do you call the boundary, personal boundaries. So how do you keep a balance between these two? So how do you log in into your mobile phones without touching the keypad, without entering the password? You're going to use the facial ID recognition. Is that correct? Now, facial ID recognition for most of us is convenience. But think about somebody who is having limited hand mobility. For them, it's independence. Also think about people who are visually impaired. It reduces the friction of using a mobile phone. Now, when Apple was designing it in their iPhones, they were not thinking about AI-powered features. They were thinking about accessibility. They were thinking about building trust with the users of the mobile phone. On top of it, Apple could have used the cloud-based computing for recognizing the faces, but they decided to go against it and to use the onboard mobile processing so that the facial recognition remains private to the user and on the device. This is a good example of building products which are ethical, accessible, and yet AI powered. Facial ID recognition is an AI powered feature. This is what we're going to discuss in the episode of Future Forward. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to the brand new episode of Future Forward, a podcast series by Techcanvass on artificial intelligence, business analysis, and product management. So let me introduce today's guest, Utkarsh Saraswat. He's a senior product manager at LinkedIn, working on responsible AI and trust-led product experiences used by over 1 billion professionals worldwide. His transition from hands-on engineering to global product leadership with stints at Unilever and Microsoft, building large-scale fintech, cloud, and AI platforms. Hi, Utkarsh. Welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you, Abhishek. Looking forward to our discussion.
Great. So let's start with the first question as to how did you get into product management as a career?
So it was sort of the usual way where, I started out as a software engineer, worked hands on building products, but then I wanted to see the downstream impact of what I was building. And I felt that I'd be able to empathize more with the customers. And the right way to do that might be to get into product management. At that point in time, it was not very common for folks to directly transition from software engineering to product management. So I went for an MBA, loved my time there, and transitioned to product management post my MBA. Worked at Unilever, built fintech products used by Unilever's customers, suppliers at a global scale across almost 150 countries. Post that, I found a good opportunity at Microsoft, building B2B products in the cloud and AI space. And post that at LinkedIn, where I've been building softwares and products in the responsible AI and trust and safety space.
Great. So good to know about you, Utkarsh. So Can you just explain what do you do as a product manager at LinkedIn so that people can understand what is the role and responsibilities for a product manager?
Sure. So LinkedIn, as pretty much everyone knows, is the world's professional networking platform. About a billion people who we call members come to LinkedIn platform to explore opportunities that can help them move ahead in their career, to network with other folks in their professional network. And as part of all of these people using the platform, there are opportunities where someone intentionally or unintentionally ends up creating bad content, which could be things like hate speech, adult content, right? And you'd see, some of the viral things that come in the news, etc., also make their way to LinkedIn platform. But we want to maintain the core ethos of LinkedIn to be a professional platform. My role here is to identify what are the content points that are violating LinkedIn's professional policies, and once we've determined those violative content, we sort of either take them down or restrict the distribution of such content, so that at the end of the day we are able to ensure that our members are getting the right professional experience on this platform.
Okay. So let's in general, all the roles which you have done as a product manager. What is the most exciting thing about product management, and what is something which maybe you don't like?
What excites me the most about product management is that I am not a manager, yet I need to get things done.
Correct.
Right. So even as an individual contributor, you need to drive things. You need to keep the team motivated. The engineers, the designers, the testers, the sales and marketing team of your product is the one who really gets things done on the ground. You as a product manager not only shape the journey and end state of the product, but also drive this entire group of people who work with you to make it happen in the right direction, right? So making things happen even without having a direct influence on them is something that I really love about product management. I mean, there are aspects that, a product manager is the CEO of their product, right? Those kind of ownership is definitely something that keeps me excited about doing product management. But what I really love is how we can make things happen even without having direct influence on someone.
Correct.
What I do not like about product management is also related to that. I do not have a direct influence on someone, right?
Correct.
So let's say there are 10 features that I want to build this
Hmm.
month or this semester. There are real world constraints. There are real world prioritizations that come into picture, and we're not able to do all the right things that we want to do. So there are very hard trade-offs, very ruthless cuts and prioritizations that we need to make as a product manager.
Yeah, great answer. So now let's come back to the topic. So first thing which I want to get clarification on, future ready products. What exactly does it mean?
Well, no, we are not rocket scientists.
Correct.
There are people who are building rockets. There are people who are building drones, who are building medicines that will probably cure cancer, save lives, even maybe make you immortal. But future ready products in the product management space, I would think of them as something that can anticipate the need of the user, right, and adapt accordingly, right? Something that is ready for what is about to come. So for example, you are building a lot of AI first products these days, right, and they are addressing my needs of today, right? Can these products evolve in a way that they can address the needs of tomorrow, right? For example, let's say I'm building an app for taxis, right? Something like an Uber. If I am solely thinking that, hey, someone should be able to book their cab, right? Versus the kind of experience that will come into picture when a lot of people are booking their apps, right? How can I build the app in a way that it does not break down when there is an immense network of users who are trying to book the app as well as drivers, right? So my product should be ready for the future in a way that it can cater to its own growth, the growth of its consumers, right? The entire network that's going to be able to use it. In my view, that is what future ready products are.
Yeah, correct. Well said. So now coming to the next part of the topic, ethics and accessibility. Okay. So let's start with one of the topics first. So what is ethics and how do you bring in ethical considerations into products?
That's a great question. So, in my current role as well as the previous role where I've been building a bit of AI first product, ethics become really important. Now, let's say I am building an app which can automate the work of a factory operator, right? Um, for our end consumers, let's take up an example of an industry that I worked in, like Unilever, right? So someone who is building a soap, who is making a soap in a factory of Unilever, right? Let's say I'm able to build an app that can guide the machine in a way that the soaps can be built without human intervention, right? And the end state of that is to increase the productivity of the entire process, right? Can this automation make sure that it is making the right level of checks that the human was performing while making the productivity also higher, right? So let's say you are mixing ingredients. What if there is some impurity that a human was able to watch out? I need to make sure that just with the end focus of increasing the productivity, my AI or my automation is not introducing a level of bias, a level of uh, cognitive gap into this entire process, right? It needs to be operating ethical in the same way that the original human would have done, right? So ethics into product management, especially AI, is a very critical requirement, right? Almost a deal breaker in many space. For example, let's say I'm trying to build a capability which detects hate speech on the posts and comments in LinkedIn, right? I need to make sure that I and the product is ethical enough to not have a bias towards anything that we are detecting. Let's say something does not align with my personal beliefs, right? And I end up introducing that bias into the capability of detecting hate speech. Would that be ethical? Probably not, right? Almost certainly not. So I believe that the product that we are building should be maintaining the same level of ethics that we would expect a human to align with. That's ethics in product management for me.
Yeah, correct. Basically, nowadays everybody is trying to get more views, more eyeballs, and they try to put up content which just gets more attention
Yeah.
rather than is more ethical.
Yep. So I think we as product managers being sort of first in line to address such problems should take this onus of ethical product management onto us.
Yeah, correct. So now next is accessibility. So what exactly it is and how do you kind of take care of it in the products?
I'll give an example about an experience at Microsoft where we were building something for the financial services industry, and while doing a user research, I realized that some of my visually impaired users are having a very hard time navigating through that product. Right, we sitting in our comfortable IT offices, in our comfortable desks with all the comforts and luxuries of the world, sometimes do not realize what is the end state of our product consumption going to look like. And post that user study, it was an eye opener for me, and I made sure that accessibility is a key consideration at the early stage of my product building itself. We reviewed how we build things for that particular product as well as the others, and we came up with guidelines that should be embedded early into the stage of building that product as well as the other products, that it should be accessible for the entire spectrum of our users. Someone with visual impurities, someone with auditory impairment, everyone should be able to consume, utilize, make the best use of our products. And I feel that if it's accessible to everyone, is only when you will be able to make the right impact that you started out with.
Correct. So the last part of the topic, ethical, accessible, future ready AI powered products. So, what is AI powered actually mean?
Good question. So today everyone's trying to call everything AI,
Yeah.
right? Something that's automation, something that's that was called robotic process automation until some time ago. You know, we say that, hey, I'm using ChatGPT to write this document, and I'm using AI. My product is AI first. It's probably the farthest from truth that it can be, right? Artificial intelligence started out with a way to augment or replace or supplement human intelligence, right? Where the machine that itself is able to make some decisions of its own, not us having taught the machine that, hey, if you see something on left, you put it to right, right? That's probably something that's 20, 30, 40 years ago. And if we're doing something like that, it's not AI product management, right? What it actually is, identifying your user signals, recommending something to them, suggesting something to them, creating something for them, just as a human would, right? So for example, in the space of LinkedIn, and this is a product that's getting a lot of traction, there's something called LinkedIn hiring assistant that would enable the recruiters to identify the right kind of candidates, just how like a source or a talent acquisition team would do for someone, right? So that is something that is actually emulating, simulating, replicating the way someone with a human intelligence would operate, right? That is artificial intelligence in my view. Then there are things like recommendation systems, etc., that have been in place, like, you use your e-commerce systems like Amazon, etc., and then you identify that, hey, someone who bought a pair of jeans also bought this particular kind of shirt, right? Those are somewhere there, right? Just like a personal shopper would help you identify that, hey, this shirt would go well with this particular jeans, is where probably recommendations, suggestions, clustering come into picture as somewhat close to AI systems. Then there's a lot of generative AI space that we're talking about, where we are actually prompting an AI system to create something that's net new, right? ChatGPT was probably one of the most publicly accessible steps in this space, where you were able to ask it questions, and based on the entire knowledge base that it had, it was able to generate a layer of text which was very similar to what a human would do, right? So that is still a very good use case of AI.
Yeah.
We just need to be, sure that there is a difference between generative AI and what we call AI. Like I said, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, these are probably closer to generative AI,
Yeah.
rather than an AI which is doing things like a human would, apart from generating some text, images, etc.
Correct. So, can you think of any product in the past or in the recent past which was ethical, but it also mattered to whom it should matter, like the consumers of the product? Anything which you can think of?
Okay. So I'll talk about the more mature stages of ChatGPT. Right, it's been a deal breaker for billions of people. You know, until now, if I have to find something, I would do a Google search, and I'll get some curated results in the form of web URLs. But then not everyone is in the right space to determine, make sense of those search results. You still need an additional layer, and not everyone's able to utilize that information to the best possible extent, right? Uh, GPT, Perplexity, these kind of products came into picture to scrape that entire information that a search engine result would yield, and they were able to summarize, synthesize, regenerate, paraphrase it in a way that is consumable by billions of people. Right, that has been a deal breaker in my view. These have been ethical in the advanced stages. I mean, in the initial days of GPT, there were sufficient examples of people, putting out queries like, how do I murder someone, and GPT would synthesize a very nicely detailed way to do that.
Correct.
Right. But fortunately, now we are in a space where the kind of checks have been built into these systems. That's also somewhat related to the work that I do at LinkedIn in terms of responsible AI. That, hey, if a job seeker is looking for job opportunities, I should probably not show opportunities that are biased against their particular background, or someone should not be able to misuse the capability that we are providing to our members.
Correct. So, just an extension to that question. Nowadays, a lot of focus is on adding cool features into the products. Okay, but cool features may not always work. Any example which you can think of where it had good cool features, but it didn't work at all?
Cool. Let's talk about Meta AI that's embedded into WhatsApp, right? Something that we end up using day in and day out. The AI is not capable of doing a lot of things today. It can't look up through your chats, even for that matter, right? A very classical use case on WhatsApp is searching by a time range, right? Think that's a gap that's been there for years now, and we're not able to do. I started to attempt if I can leverage Meta AI to look up through my chats in a particular time range or in a particular context. For a long time, it was not able to do that. Not sure if they've evolved it to do it now, but on the surface of it, it looked very fancy. But did it get to be successful for uh, a use case that an active user like me would be able to get fulfilled? No.
Right. I didn't know this actually.
So yeah, I think I'm sure they have their own concerns, right? Probably also related to ethics and responsible AI for that matter. That is it right to eavesdrop into your private conversations, given that Meta says that no one apart from you and the receiver can actually access it, right? But me as a user, I would expect an agent to an AI agent to look into it and give me an answer. At the face of it, billions of us would not care about privacy. So yeah, I'm sure they had their reasons.
Yeah. So that is the next question for the audience. Do you think bringing in ethical considerations into a product means reducing the profit? What do you think? True or false? We'll give you the answer later in the interview. Okay, so the next question, which is a big one. So, if you have to design a product which really is helpful to the customers, to the stakeholders, whether it has too many features or doesn't have too many features, what are the considerations which a product manager has to make?
That's a good question. The way we start about this journey is finding the problem statement that we are trying to solve in the first place, right? Sometimes we think that, hey, there is a certain gap out there, you know, but we often don't look into whether we really want to solve it or not, right? And once I know that problem statement that I want to solve, next is why do I solve it, right? If the why is good enough, it's something that I'll probably start solving, let's say next week, next month, next semester, and so on. If that's something that's not super critical, we probably push it to later when there's a lighter semester, lighter day, lighter month, quarter. When the world is in a better space, it's probably a good to have, not a must have. Once my what and why are identified, I start about the how. Right. So the how is sort of how I go about solving this problem, right? It could be a new feature, right? It could be a suite of features, right? For example, WhatsApp is out there and they're trying to make people communicate with each other. One of the problem statements they found was for example, I am using WhatsApp to communicate with you and I ask you for $100. And if you need to initiate that transaction, you'll probably need to exit WhatsApp and go to a UPI app and execute it. That sort of breaks the flow for WhatsApp users, right? That is the what that maybe WhatsApp wanted to solve. Now, the why for this is if the flow of usage of WhatsApp is broken, it's a possibility that users eventually churn out of WhatsApp, right? The how in this case would be integrating a payment capability within WhatsApp, right? Then there are more technical and involved consideration into this picture, that does WhatsApp really want to get into the space of doing payments or not, right? If the answer to that is no, they can explore an integration with a UPI app like Paytm, Google Pay, Phone Pay, etc. If the answer to that is yes, we need to make a business case for that. Yes, right. If WhatsApp is able to do these transactions, they can leverage it for their member to member communications. They can leverage it for the merchants who have catalogs, etc. on WhatsApp. uh, but this is a big consideration for Meta to enter into the payment space as well, right? And if they are trying to solve these things, they may be considering, do we have this kind of capability already today? So if Meta is able to do payments, one arm of Meta, for example, Instagram allows payments for buying premium and verified accounts. Can we leverage that kind of expertise into WhatsApp payments as well, right? We need to determine what arms of our organization already support those kind of capabilities. Does that align with the future vision of where we want to get to, right? If the answer to all of that is yes, we have those capabilities, or we are willing to invest in those capabilities, then we start detailing the how, right? So we create a functionality where you can specify how much amount, what is the platform that will be used underneath, would it be UPI based or would it be a wallet based like PayPal or Paytm wallet, etc. And once we have the how as well, we start planning how the experience will look like, right? So a PM in this case gets involved into designing the mockups at high fidelity or low fidelity. Then we start collaborating with user researchers, with designers to create that kind of experience that our members will be getting. And then we plan the release, go live, go to market of these capabilities. So this entire journey is, where a net new problem solving for the product manager comes into picture.
Okay, so just to summarize, so you start with the what is to be built, why it is to be built, right? There has to be a reason for it, how it is going to be built, which will also consider whether it fits into the strategic goals of the organization,
Yep.
technical feasibility, and some other considerations. And then finally, you get into execution mode. But prior to that, you may also have prototyping just to kind of get an agreement with the stakeholders, and then the planning, the roadmaps and release plan.
Yep.
Okay, so that's to summarize. Now, in this, where do you bring in the ethical considerations or the accessibility considerations
At every stage.
at every? Okay.
Why are we solving this problem, right? I need to be sure that I am not looking to understand transacting patterns of my members as WhatsApp or Meta, right? Are we doing this to actually understand those patterns, right? And maybe even expand as an NBFC in the future, or are we doing this to really enable them to communicate with each other, transact with each other, right? Without eavesdropping into whether they are talking about money and so on, right? So even in the what stage, we need to be sure. Then in the why stage, right? Is this problem big enough or not, right? Here also, I need to be ethical that, hey, am I solving this problem only for a certain spectra of the society or for everyone, right? If I am able to do payments for all kind of amounts, right? So probably someone at the grassroots as well as a B2B customer who's operating in a few thousands of rupees worth of transactions should be able to leverage my product, right? I should not be introducing any sort of biases in this journey as well, even at the why stage. Now, the how as well, how is where accessibility becomes extremely crucial. Everyone who is using the app, right? Let's say this payments is a public feature, right? It should be usable by all sorts of members, and it should not be restricted to only a certain type. So someone who is, let's say, visually impaired should be able to make the full use of it, where my responsibility is also that, hey, they can't see the screen, then will it be possible that any of their personal information can be readable by someone else while they are making that particular transaction? Are they still secure and safe and compliant while executing that transaction? This is my responsibility of ensuring that it's accessible, it's happening in an ethical way. It should not so happen that a scammer who is requesting money to someone on WhatsApp is able to make use of that, right? So let's say I sent you 1 rupee and I ask you to send 10,000 rupees back, right? These kind of scams people get exposed to today on phones and so on. Can we make sure that at least at WhatsApp we are giving sufficient prompts to the user who is sending the money that, hey, you are indeed sending this kind of money. And if someone is having any sort of accessibility challenges, we make sure we are covering for that through audio prompts and so on, right? So this entire journey, and then when we are doing the experience design, like accessibility is a deal breaker, right? When we're planning the rollout, we should do it for all sorts of users, all spectrum of users, so that everyone is able to get a flavor of even the MVP or the beta phase and so on, right? And we get a holistic feedback. We should not be building our products with the bias of only one kind of users.
Yeah. So the next problem with AI is black box. Okay. So many times you cannot have a system where you can't explain as to why this decision has been taken. So what goes in kind of removing that so that you can build trust for the consumers?
Sure. So, there's an anecdote where a father of a girl was recommended diapers because his daughter was pregnant. Okay, and this was a major concern. It was viral across the news, got a lot of attention. And the father was initially shocked. Why did it happen to him? Right. As a consumer, you might even lose faith on the system that's giving you this kind of a recommendation, right? Had there been some sort of explainability that, hey, your daughter has been looking for formula milk, and that might be the reason that we are recommending this to you, that kind of a simple situation would have addressed such a major concern, right? So explainability on why a machine is acting in a particular way is extremely critical, right? We try to do this on different platforms through things like tooltips, where you click on that and you get to know the why this was recommended, why this particular text was generated, or where did I read this information from. Let's say we are using Copilot to summarize some of our work that we've done in the past few weeks in our organization. If it does not call out what is the source of this information, right? I think it leaves a major gap and concern in the user's mind that, hey, is this even real, or is this just the AI hallucinating, right? So explainability of any decision, of any recommendation that the AI is making is extremely critical. In our cases, at LinkedIn's Trust and Safety, if we take down your post claiming it to be hate speech without any rationale, is that the right thing to do? Probably not. And that's where there are regulatory checks in place which demand that our AI should be operating at a particular confidence level, right? The effectiveness of our models should be high enough, and it's not very arbitrary. And in cases where we see any deviation, we need to provide the right kind of explanation to our members, to the regulatory authorities as well. Right? So explainability is extremely critical at any point.
Yeah, correct. So now the next part is there's a lot of expectation that the AI should be personalizing the answers and recommendations. Okay. But the other side of it is being too creepy in the sense getting into your personal areas of what do you call the boundary, personal boundaries. So how do you keep a balance between these two?
Well, the line is very thin about how much I know about you, and
How much should I know about you?
how much should I know about you. And that's where bringing ethics, bringing responsible AI into your product management becomes critical. At the early stages, we would end up exposing all our information to the AI agent that we are leveraging. but it's the agent's responsibility to filter out within that entire data set what is actually contextually relevant for the information that the user is seeking, right? This can be introduced through uh, settings that what level of depth do we share with the agent, right? So, for example, if I have some WhatsApp chats with you and an agent can read that, I can draw the line that, hey, do not read anything that talks about my personal life or anything that talks about my financial well being, and draw the line on those kind of areas within our communication. And in that case, we are giving the member the control, what you want the AI to not read about, right? The other thing is the AI product itself should be able to segregate what is not relevant for it to go into. Let's say you're talking about your health problems with someone. Uh, Unless this AI is focused on a wellness app, right? Let's say you have a conversation going with your doctor whom you're telling, an AI that is wealth management related should not be reading those kind of things, right? So here we should know what purpose we are building our product for, and then segregate, filter out those kind of conversations out of it,
Right.
right? So it's both ways. It's on the member side, it's on the product side as well.
Okay. So, one question for the audience: is AI inherently biased? What do you think? Is true or false? Okay. So now I had asked two questions now with the audience. The first question was, if you are bringing in ethical considerations, it means the product may not end up being profitable. Is that true?
I strongly do not feel so. I come from a 150-year-old company called Unilever that announced something called Sustainable Living Plan.
Hmm.
Uh, our previous CEO, Paul Polman, said that if you're doing good for the universe, it's good for your business. Uh, how it works out, for example, is let's say I am ensuring that my AI is giving recommendations that, hey, ensure your well-being physically and mentally, right? I'll have a user that has opportunity to use my product more. I have the opportunity that my user will organically spread word about my product itself, right? The kind of goals that I am trying to achieve with my product, the kind of growth that I'm aiming for my product will come from the users themselves if I am benefiting them. The same goes for any AI product as well. Uh, Talk about ChatGPT. This got some sort of traction. You know, GPT existed way before 2021, 2022 when it became viral. The only deal breaker there was that it was accessible to you and me just behind a login, right? Prior to that, the GPT that we've been using was called GPT 3.5. Did you know about GPT 3.4, 3.1, 2, 1, and so on?
Correct.
Right. When I was able to make sure that a billion people are able to use those kind of capabilities for free for good uses, I was able to bring in those checks around ethics at a later point. But when I was able to make sure that this is doing good for a lot of people, that's what blew up OpenAI from an organization that was non-profit to something that's going to get listed probably at 100 billion,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's no better example of an ethically responsible AI doing good for the users as well as good for the business of the company.
Yeah. Good example. The second question I asked: AI is inherently biased. Is it true or false?
It is false. The pause I take is because it's as biased as us, right? So if you think about how you build up the AI, right? You have a training data set that helps it understand how humans would think. And humans are inherently biased, right? You collect data set about a particular population. That population will always have a majority view. It will have a minority view. And if you see that 95% of the cases, the responses to a particular question are in one particular direction, would be led into thinking that, hey, this direction itself seems to be the right one, right? And that's something that can introduce bias into the AI's thought process. Now, as product managers, what we need to make sure is that this bias is discounted as much as possible. Now, how can I do that? I ensure that my dataset is representative of the population's thought processes. And there's something called red teaming, wherein you prompt the AI, you give it some sort of queries like a eventual user would, and you try to understand the responses that it's generating. In those responses, you try to identify, is the AI giving responses that are biased, right? So, for example, uh, I have an AI where I can go and search for jobs. Is it always giving jobs that are for males, right? And for a female user, this kind of a thing will not be helpful at all, right? So we need to make sure that the AI is capturing those data sets of jobs that are for females as well. And if the gender of the user, of the searcher, is female, it is able to give them the correct responses as well, right? So this is our job to reduce that bias in the AI.
Yeah. So the last question, what would be your advice to product managers? Okay, given your experience in ethical and responsible AI, if they are building products, what should they keep in mind? One or two things which you feel are important.
Sure. Don't jump into building a problem right away. Get the real why, what, the kind of impact that you'll be able to drive. And given that AI products need a lot of resources to build, even to run, they need like expensive GPUs, which are always expensive, and the availability is a crunch. You know, solve for the right problems, right? Optimize the problems and the solutions that you are solving for have an impact in mind that, hey, it should not so happen that I'm spending 1 million worth of infra every month and I do not have some sort of business outcome, positive business impact out of it within a certain timeline, right? So make sure that you're solving for the right problems and have realistic expectations in terms of the impact that will be driven out of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very important ones. So thank you so much, Utkarsh. It was pleasant talking to you, and you have really nailed down some of the key aspects which we're discussing today. So thanks for watching this episode. I hope you had a good idea about how to build a product that is ethical, accessible, and AI powered. But keep in mind, AI powered, what Utkarsh said about what does it mean to be AI powered. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much.